Welcome to Basic Book Mending. Today we're going to learn how to trim and replace the edges on book jackets. So for this technique, you're going to need Scotch brand transparent tape, some kind of pair of scissors, an X-Acto knife, colored construction paper, which I'll show you when we get there, or art paper works well, Xerox paper, any kind of colored paper. You will need some method of cutting it, and that would be either a paper cutter or a guillotine or a self-cutting mat. This one is a self-cutting mat, or cardboard sheet, the big cardboard sheets that I showed you in the last video, as long as they're doubled. So the purpose of trimming off the damaged edges is it preserves the integrity of the book jacket. By replacing the edges with fresh paper, gives it strength and a straight, clean edge for when you're going to attach the new Mylar. So the reason why we trim and the purpose is that if we didn't have a tight seal here and there was fraying either at the top or the bottom, this invites the Mylar to get torn again, which would then further damage the book jacket. So here's some examples of ones that have had their edges trimmed and replaced with paper. Just show you to get an idea, because one of the big things is matching colors. And if not matching colors, then a color scheme. You know, maybe this would have been interesting with yellow, a light blue. This, as you can see, the person went with the theme of yellow. I particularly like this one. It's a river, the River Charles, and the person used this color here to trim it. And then this one is just sweet. It's simple. They went with the color that was on the text. And it just makes the books look really good. So once again, before you repair any book, you want to consult the mending guidelines to make sure the book is worthy of mending, and that is based on price and relevance. So please always check the mending guidelines. So first, we suggest that you make any other necessary repairs to the book jacket. That's if you maybe have to fill in colors, things before you trim the edges, because it sometimes can be difficult to make repairs after you've done that. So we're going to pick the appropriate colored paper. So with this book jacket, it is really starting to come apart here. I don't know if you can see that, and the edges are frayed, and up here too. So we have some choices of colors. So one of the things is, come on, you paper. So we could do a color like this, frame it in. We could look at this area here and do an offset color. Sometimes that makes it stand out. On this particular book, we have lots of choices. So we could do something like this, matching her hat. We could try to match one of the flowers, or we can go bold. So that's an idea of how you want to play with your colors. So if you don't already have pre-cut strips of paper, you can make your own with a couple of sheets of construction paper. So what you want to do is cut a strip about 1.5 to 2 inches wide, and I'm just going to estimate here. And since you're only going to see the straight edge side, it does not have to be perfect. Perfectionism is not necessarily a great idea. Okay, and then we're going to cut the other one. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take those 2 straight edges. So that's 1 straight edge, and that's 1 straight edge. And we're just going to put them 2 together like that. And you now have a strip of paper. So we picked this color for the one with the flower in the middle. And so the snap technique, as you remember, is to get it nice and flat. Now, you can either work from the top or the bottom, but I suggest that you practice before you tape anything down, because this is a very visual thing. So for some people, they work better going this way and straightening it, because it has to be exactly to the edge. And then some people work better this way. And I will tell you, I work better this way. So what I do is I take the edge of the paper, and I'm going to use this edge since part has been cut off. So I'm going to just kind of get it started there, and then I'm going to walk it up the middle. And once I get it on the middle and it's nice and flat, then I check my sides. Check my sides, pull it back a little bit, and it's right there. So Scotch tape right there, and then I'm not going to worry, just a couple pieces here and there. Voila. Okay. Then I trim off the edge over here using my handy dandy scissors. Okay. Okay. And then you will do the same thing on the bottom. So if you work best going this way, you will work that way. Or in my case, I will flip it around. I will start with getting this to the edge, and then I will walk it up the middle till I get it exactly along. Once I've got it in place, I'm going to put my tape along the bottom here. Don't need a whole lot because you're just basically holding it in place. I'm going to trim off the excess. Okay, now it's ready to be actually trimmed. So I cannot stress how important it is that when you start cutting, you have got to flip this over. You must flip this over, otherwise you're going to cut off your edge. Now the paper I'm using has the UPC labels, so get that off. Okay, and you never cut with this side facing up. You always cut with the damaged side facing up. And again, I always make sure I've flipped it. Now I'm going to show you how to cut it on a self-healing cutting mat. So if at your branch you don't have this, then you would want to use cardboard. Okay, I want to make sure you can see that. So what I start is I start moving it down to where the damage is. And I get it nice and straight. And I'm going to move this up. And I try, the goal is to not cut off any text or anything of importance. So once I get this down, I take my X-Acto and I run it along the edge. And always be careful when you're cutting. And I always like to put the lid of the X-Acto back on if I knew which side the lid was. There we go. Okay. So now, we have a new edge. So I flip it back over and voila. Isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh, I just love that. Okay, now next I'm going to show you how to cut it on a guillotine or a paper cutter. So we've got our paper strips in place. Always remember to flip it over before you're going to cut and make sure you've got the side, the cover facing up. Now I want to be show you a little more of what we're talking about. Usually you'd never have to trim very much of the edges. What you're trying to do is make it so it's very strong, and you're doing that by adding the sheet of paper. So what you really want to do is just remove the frayed edges here. So we're only going to go right up to there, but we're going to make sure we do it straight. Okay, so what I like to do is find it where it is, and then I line up my edges. Okay. Make sure none of it's hanging over. I'm going to move it a little bit back. And take your time. This is not there's no rush. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to flip my top up. I'm going to put it on the book so you can see what it looks like. Voila! Oh, that is so pretty. Look at that. And once you get the Mylar on, got to take the old tape off there. So once you get the Mylar on, it just looks beautiful. Okay, so that is how you trim and replace the edges on a book.